All right, so we are here to talk about a very special topic that we will be discussing, or Hannah and her co-hosts will be discussing this evening on HBR Talk. So tell me about your topic and why you chose it, Hannah.
Well, initially I had just planned on continuing to talk about Title IX, but in light of recent events with Antifa and the rioting that has been taking place all over the United States, I think it's very important to talk about how that ends up happening. And I've been looking at some of the evidence that it's very orchestrated, not just spontaneous reaction to the recent incident, the recent racial killing incident with the police.
The pallets of bricks that have been found and
showing up in neighborhoods like right before a planned protest,
spawning in certain key spots.
The open conflicts between Black Lives Matter protesters and Antifa protesters, where the Black Lives Matter protesters are having to ask Antifa protesters to stop vandalizing property because it's going to get blamed on Black people that didn't do it. So there's a lot of this going on, right? And how does a group like this manifest in the United States and take hold so quickly? And you look at the history of how people get sucked into these groups. Fatherlessness is one of the big causes of people being in a mental state that makes joining up with these groups feel like a rational choice. And then we also have this history of the use of political correctness to cause social division and civil unrest among people who are already in that mentality. So what I want to talk about this week is this perfect storm of exploitation of people's rough circumstances that are somewhat rough by design, that have historically been targeted to certain groups. And so I'm going to be bringing up both the aspect of fatherlessness and the aspect of how political correctness has been used to manipulate people. And in a lot of ways, both of these either are caused by targeting men's civil rights and men's human rights to be sort of subjugated or pushed aside in favor of these supposedly great ideas, or specifically targeting men and boys with these ideas of political correctness that lead to this unrest, either as criticisms of them or in terms of racial division. They're the ones that are being taught to resent and act on it. And they're the ones put the most at risk of being long-term jailed, being killed, being separated from their families, being isolated, and so on by these attitudes. So that's going to be the topic this week. And I haven't got a title for that yet.
And we certainly have seen a lot of that in the news lately with the riots, and really it does ask a question: what is the end game of all of this dissent? It just seems to be general destruction of society as it stands. It doesn't seem to have an end goal, just expressing anger and despair.
Yeah, the end goal may be replacing our current socioeconomic system, legal system, and so on with the system that the folks who are behind it think is ideal.
If they think that that's even possible. And will it really be a solution if the problem is this kind of destructive violence that's inspired by a lack of fathers, a lack of masculine mentors, and a lack of a real a right to assume a masculine role in society, or a role period for men, which I think is what Canna is getting at. Because if that's the problem, then the solution is, if the problem is the chaos and that's caused by not having these young men have a role to step into as a father, as a head of a household, as part of a family, and building a business, or being a productive member of the community, cooperating with other men, and the despair and the anger and the destruction is coming out of not having that, then no matter what system they propose, it won't work, because the solution is to reinstate young men and young women's ability to create family and to create prosperity for themselves and their communities. I mean, that's what I think. And
yeah.
So
Yeah,
All
my
right.
thoughts on this as well. I think a lot of people mistake our society's cohesiveness as strictly being based on women's standards for how we are as a society. When
Mm-hmm.
I think in reality, it's really based on the cohesiveness of relationships between men and women, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
not everybody in nuclear families. Just us being able to cooperate together and be compatible in like friendships and coworker relationships and everything, and not at odds with each other. Our society falls apart when men and women are at war with each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And why wouldn't it be that way? Considering that society really is a balance between men and women and the masculine and the feminine identity. All right. Well, if you'd like to hear more of this week's HBR Talk, just go right here. And you'll be able to listen to Hannah and Lauren Brooks and potentially also Natty, as well as any other special guests that take part in the discussion. Thank you for your kind attention, and I do hope to see you there.